I've heard you say that humans tends to be afraid of achieving their full potential. This sounds counterintuitive at first. So why does this occur? How would I notice when this is happening for me? And what can I do about it? Andrew, what a beautiful question. How many of you agree? The reason why us human beings are so afraid of our full potential, why it occurs is because, think about this, when we go for what we want, when we don't hold ourselves back, when we don't delay anymore, and we persevere, that officially marks the death of the old way of being. You're waving goodbye to the old story of you. Are you getting this? You're waving goodbye to that old version of you. And this is why most of us secretly resist it. In fact, I was, back in the past, as you know, struggled with social anxiety as long as I can remember, where I was homebound every single day. So when I made a goal in my life to become a public speaker, do you think I struggled? Yes or yes? You bet. And I never knew why. I would join speaking courses because I wanted to become a speaker, but I never showed up to them. How many of you can relate? I just signed up to these courses and never joined them. For some reason, never actually got involved. And anytime I did get involved, I would actually give up halfway through the actual course. And now reflecting back on that moment, why that was happening is this. Think about this. If I actually showed up to a course and actually saw it all the way to the end, that officially marks the death of the old way of being. This meant that I had to wave goodbye to this socially anxious guy story I have been living for all my life. That has kept me safe. That my survival mind thinks this is the identity that's going to make it more safe. Is this making sense? Because all of a sudden I've become a public speaker. It's a new identity, new story I have to live. This is why we resist our full potential. And if you don't believe me, just think about this for a second. Just imagine going an entire day or month or a year without procrastinating, without ever holding yourself back, without ever saying to yourself you're not good enough, wherever it may be. And you'll begin to realize that's hard for you to even imagine. And that's because we're uniquely addicted to our patterns of self-sabotage. Is this making sense? And it seems so counterintuitive, but you realize how true it really is. So in order for you to be the exception and not the rule, you've got to become aware of the patterns of self-sabotage. How does it really show up in your life? You got to understand the language of self-sabotage so you can actually communicate with it better and interact with it better. Making sense? Would you like to know the language? Well, understand that self-sabotage, if we're talking about advanced self-sabotage, is very hidden and covert. Hence why most people never know they're self-sabotaging themselves. Self-sabotage tends to actually happen, believe it or not, in pillars of your life that's indirectly linked to the pillar that you're trying to work on right now. So let's say you're trying to build up your career. You'll notice all of a sudden, your survival mind makes you self-sabotage your relationships. You're finding yourself getting into arguments more frequently, all of a sudden. Or your health, you're not looking after it all of a sudden. And the reason why is, think about it, when you begin to bring that pillar down, then you're back to where you are in terms of level of happiness and joy. Is this making sense? So your survival mind wants to go undetected. So it's going to make sure it's covert, it's hidden. And the way it's going to do that is always going to indirectly self-sabotage you in pillars of your life you are not really looking at right now. And those of you who've ever sabotaged yourself, you know how true this really is. Yes or no? And eventually, because you sabotage your relationships, let's say, that will impact your wealth. That impacts your business because you're thinking about the relationships. How many know what I'm saying? Also, if you've ever had, this is freaky by the way, illnesses or injuries following any great achievements, check in with yourself. Because it's very freaky, but this is self-sabotage. And I used to notice this in my life, whereby after great accomplishments, I would burn out like crazy, even though I didn't do a lot of work. It wasn't like I was working day and night, but I just experienced a huge burnout that comes out of nowhere. Or I just get like my anxiety goes over the top and all of a sudden I find myself bedbound. I mean, what I'm saying? Or the overthinking is like just through the roof that it burns me out as well. So if you've ever had these moments before, these are all the ways, of course, you are going to be brought back into where you've always been. So you got to become aware of, firstly, what is your current threshold for your level of goodness? Because your mind believes, for example, Andrew, if we use you as a case study, your mind believes Andrew deserves this amount of goodness and success. And anytime Andrew goes past that, your mind will begin to ensure you go back to the norm. Is this making sense? Anytime you go too low, you'll notice your mind begins to make you work. So you're back to where you are. Become aware of your threshold. Then understand, become observant of the language of self-sabotage. And from there, you will begin to actually break through this threshold. But to break through, you've got to believe you deserve it first. If you don't believe you deserve it, you've already shot yourself in the foot before you even begun. How many know what I'm saying? And you'll know what your threshold is because in terms of income, it's very obvious. Where do you normally tend to linger in terms of income? Right? How many know what I'm saying? High achievers, you'll notice there is a pattern, right? You keep on doing well and all of a sudden you keep on going back to that same level. So that's your income threshold. But how about in terms of your health? How about in terms of your relationships? Become aware of it.